Back when it first came out in like 2012, I played Dishonored. And if you've seen any of our Let's Plays, you know that my playstyle is run in, guns blazing, sword swinging, whatever, and destroy everything in sight. So this game was no different for me. And at the time, I did play a lot of Xbox, but I didn't play a lot of different games. And I had no idea that games were as complex enough to do what I would come to find that Dishonored could do. So I went through this game killing everything in sight and started to quickly see the levels become very dark and depressing. The towns were quickly vacated and most of the townspeople were dead. I remember one level specifically. It was a small little corner area that felt really like the end of the world. It was very dreamlike and depressing. It was a slums with one little apartment complex and I think literally one old woman left alive in her room in that complex. And behind the apartment was a mountain of corpses. Everything was very gray and very bleak, and I remember just looking at that mountain of corpses and thinking, wow, this is a depressing game. And still at that point, I thought that's just how the game went. It wasn't until weeks after beating it that I talked to my friend about it, and he started saying, yeah, that game is cool because your playstyle affects the world around you. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, well, yeah, there's this plague, so the more people you kill, the more the plague's gonna spread. And suddenly, I felt this rain cloud over me. I felt responsible for that pile of corpses, which I was. And curiously enough, I also felt horrible about it. Point being, in any other game, when you're responsible for a pile of corpses, you either don't care, think it's funny, or are proud of your accomplishment. If it had been Oblivion, I would have intended on killing all those people for fun. And exactly what I had intended to do would have happened. But in this game, in Dishonored, I didn't really mean to do that. I caused it, but it wasn't my direct intention, and that made it feel real. Even in games that pride themselves on being open world, and are known for letting the player do whatever and go wherever they want, like Todd Howard's famous "You see that mountain, you can climb it" quote, you're still doomed to inevitably be exactly the character that the game wants you to be, no matter how hard you try and tear yourself away from it. For instance, in Bully, you can choose to bully kids and attack cops and bystanders, but the character Jimmy Hopkins is actually against bullying. I remember this distinctly because, yeah, I did that in the game. After beating a game, what is there left to do? So my mom comes in my room when I'm 12 years old, and she sees 12-year-old Emmett giving kids wedgies and molesting women, and my mom was like, Emmett, this is horrible. You can't play this game. And I would say, but Mom, Jimmy Hopkins is against bullying, which was true, but also clearly not. With video games, the story and the gameplay rarely ever line up into one cohesive concept. They run parallel to each other, starting and ending in the same place, but they're separate experiences. For instance, in GTA, if you can manage to hide for a few minutes, everyone will forget about the RPG that you shot into 5 o'clock traffic. And in Oblivion, you can wipe out an entire city. But if you're at the right place in the main quest, Martin Septim, a priest, will still consider you a good friend. The freedom to slaughter a village isn't freedom. Real freedom is choice, and real choices have real consequences. So experiencing real freedom is experiencing the consequences of your actions. Let's face it, if every action we ever took had its precisely intended effect, none of us would be where we are right now. But that's life. And that's exactly my point. Being immune to the consequences of your actions is anti-freedom. It's a static world where everything you do is kind of in vain because the game had, from the moment you started playing it, an intended effect your player would have on the world around you. Spoilers for American Psycho, but it's like that scene at the end of American Psycho where he knows he's probably been caught and he knows he's a terrible person, but he realizes he can't not get away with it. And while that may be cool and fun at first, it's ultimately a very existentially damning and hopeless phenomenon.
I killed him. I'm Patrick Bateman.
But that's simply not possible. And I don't find this funny anymore.
It never was supposed to be. Why isn't it possible?
It's just not.
Why not, you stupid bastard?
Because I had dinner with Paul Allen twice in London. Just 10 days ago.
No, you...
Now, of course, for story-driven games, there's really no way around this. You're experiencing basically a book or a film through the eyes of the main character, with little inconsequential variation here or there. And yes, video games are an incredible medium for storytelling, but they're not confined to just that. If you put 5 different people in the same situation, there's going to be 5 very different outcomes, most likely. Video games have the power to do this, and I think we're beginning to see this with games with multiple endings, But I think drawing this distinction between one linear path or a set of linear paths versus a truly open world of butterfly effects is the key to a great RPG. They have the potential to be this vast expanse of endless possibilities and limitless futures. And I hope to see more games that follow this path in the near future.